Welcome everyone. Hello. Welcome everyone. Here is Stefano Antonelli to speak about Plone theming. He's an early adopter of Plone since Plone 2.1. Is that exact? Yeah. Somehow, and he's a big fan of UX, and he will share his experience and knowledge today. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, almost. What a lovely audience. I really have to take a picture for my notes. Please smile now. Nice. Very old joke. As old as Plone. So, hello everybody. Today I want to talk about, or let's introduce myself quickly. Stefan, as he said, Operon is a company I founded like 20 years ago. I work with Plone since ages. I quickly have to make the presenter notes a little bigger here. Sorry. No. Oh, yeah. Genau. I work with Plone since ages, and feel free to contact me if you have questions right after the talk or during the next 2 or 3 days. I do not attend the sprint, so if you want to know something specific, try to catch me up a little earlier. Yeah. Depends on if we have time. I don't have that much slides, but mostly screenshots and pictures. We will see. We will see. Okay, that's good to know. So what is this talk about? I want to talk about the beautiful Plone 6 release, which is beautiful now, finally, somehow. I talk mainly about classic UI, and I want to talk about theming by use case. It's just a reminder, or designers know that stuff, but if you create a theme, if you create a product, if you create a website, always keep in mind what is your audience, what is the target group. That is theming by use case. So, before I start with the actual talk, I have to say I'm really sad. I'm really, really sad. My initial plan was to pop up at the conference and have 2 or 3 little shiny, nice new themes for Plone 6 in the bag, but unfortunately I catched a cold 2 weeks ago. So long story short, it didn't work out to get everything up and running for the conference, so stay tuned. I can show today what we have today. Stay tuned for later updates. I will mention a couple of package names during the talk. Follow them on GitHub, or wait for releases on PyP if you're interested in that specific themes. So let's start with the talk. The good news actually is, and that's what I want you to know today, theming is actually fun again. So if you work with Plone Classic UI, with the traditional backend, it's finally much more fun to create a theme, or to touch the templates, to touch the styles and create something beautiful out of it. We had a training and it took like 30 minutes to get everything up and running, and beginning from that point you can do what you want. So it's not that complicated than it was in the past. For Plone 6, for the markup of Plone 6, we switched to Bootstrap. That's what we call classic UI now, which makes it much easier to create new things. So if you think of prototyping, or if you think of touching templates, you can literally create nice and shiny things within minutes, because you don't have to touch CSS all the time, you don't have to reinvent CSS, you don't have to write CSS for every small piece you want to add to your website or to your product somehow. All major templates in Plone 6 basically work without a specific theme. And that's the interesting point, because the markup is Bootstrap. You have to install, or you have to set up the Bootstrap core stuff, which is not a specific theme. It helps for bringing up all the styles for the default stuff in the Plone backend, especially forms. That's my favorite example. All forms, or most of the forms you will see in later screenshots, are pretty much not styled. There is no specific styling to get them look like you will see them. So when you create your custom thing, you don't have to reinvent the wheel for styling forms or buttons or navigational elements. They're all just there. So big thanks to the guys who cleaned up the JavaScript story, especially patterns and stuff. I'm not into that, but it was a lot of work cleaning that up, cleaning JavaScript up, and I guess get rid of a lot of JavaScript which was necessary in Plone 5.2. So that's, if you have a custom, or if you have your own JavaScript code, you can easily add it. If you have modules you want to use, it's much easier now because the stack is much simpler than it was in the past. jQuery is not a requirement, for example. So if you want to get a current version of jQuery in your project, you can just use it because the default Plone stuff is not relying on that anymore. That's how we try to explain it or how we document it. There is now one way of doing things. So we got rid of, through the web editing, which is, I like it. There is only one way of doing things. We use SAS like Bootstrap use it, and we use Node or NPM to compile your sources into one bundle. So it's a streamlined build process now, and a very short documentation that shows you how to do that. Check out the training docs for examples. We have different use cases or different versions of how you create a theme. If you want to create something from scratch, if you want to inherit from Barceloneta, or if you still want to use Diazo, there are parts in the documentation for Classic UI that cover that. Training.plone.org, I guess, Classic UI section. When I talk about Bootstrap and what you can do with it, short slide, really short slide about the variables of Bootstrap. It's not going to be a technical talk, but I want to pick that because it shows the major advantages of the Bootstrap variables. You can set basic behavior like rounded corners, shadows, stuff like that. You can set the font in one place. You can define or reuse the colors. You have colors or primary, secondary colors for your theme, and you have technical colors for warnings and errors and stuff like that. So they are all predefined. There is a very huge variables SCSS. I showed the link here. Have a look at that. It's part of your local setup, so you can also look up there. And it's tons of variables for basic settings in Bootstrap. Has nothing to do with Plone, has nothing to do with Barceloneta. But all the basic stuff you can do with a setting. And if you have it in your setup, it looks like that. It's here like 5 lines. I changed some colors, the font, and 1 or 2 basic settings. And this results in a very different look and feel of the default you have. So try it out. During the training, there is a theme up, Grüezi Büsi, I guess. Did I spell it correctly? We have this Hello Kitty thing in the Plone community. I don't know where it is from. You see a very nice screenshot how you change 5 variables and some styling, and you get this nice theme with a completely different look and feel. So try it out, and again, you can inherit from Barceloneta, but you don't need. Plone's default theme is still Barceloneta, but you don't have to. It's really easy to create something from scratch. So I need to save my voice a little bit, so I want to show some more screenshots. To introduce that, I want to mention Bootstrap Components. So that's Bootstrap, name it components. It's parts of a site. They're easy to use. They're ready to go. Just copy and paste the code from Bootstrap documentation, and it will work. To be honest, this is nothing related to Plone. Don't talk about Plone here. It's just Bootstrap. So we use that, and you can use it in Plone. That's the good thing. Have a look at the link, Bootstrap Components, or Google for it. You will directly land there. Little snippets of code for buttons, for navigation, for forms. Good examples, and copy and paste it in your Plone template with the work explained ago. It will work out of the box. I will start with some examples. This is another part of the documentation area of Bootstrap. I showed a link after the examples. Here you see, for example, headers. Headers of Bootstrap, different kinds, different versions. the components are used in, like the little buttons or the search field, and they provide you ready-to-go examples. So you can go to the examples page, copy that HTML snippet into your template, and then you have a different version of a navigation. Of course, you have to tie it with Plone. You need to link the search form with the actual Plone search. You need to add static links for navigation or reuse the code from Plone to add your custom navigation elements in here. So that's of course something you have to do, but you don't have to bother with markup. And I cannot explain how much fun is it when you're in a new project. You don't have to think about how this navigation should look like. Just copy it in, it's prototyping, it works, and less people complain about it because out of the box it looks good. The coloring stuff you see here is mostly primary, secondary color. That's what comes to use here. So in the examples, they already used that stuff you defined in your variables. A little bit more detail. This is called, the component is called features. There are some examples. Copy and paste. Then you have not hired a designer, and from that point you can still change or modify it. Do a border around it, change the color, change the margins if you need it. Don't think about it, just use it, and it looks good from the beginning. Just another example for how features may look like on a website or on a microsite. Next is a little bit more. Here we see sidebars. If you need a custom sidebar for navigational stuff or for a menu inside your application, pick it, use it, it works. And I know it works, I can promise. I have an example later. I guess last thing of the components are footers. The most simple example is the first one. I picked them out because when I stack them on the screen, it would look a little weird, so you have to see it one by one. Just different versions, a little bit more complex one. I don't know, did you ever wonder why sites have ugly footers like we have in Barceloneta? I don't understand. Copy it, paste it, put in your site logo, and you're ready to go. The links, of course, you have to fill in some, but it looks clean, it looks good. I love them. Please use it. Let Plone look good in the future. Next is listings, different kind of listings for depending on your use case. Again, they're just examples. So what you need, you can directly pick. If you modify it a little bit, it fits better your needs. In the most cases, I worked with that stuff in the past. I literally copy and pasted, and it worked out somehow. Listings combined with formulas. The last example is it looks like the Apple Store, doesn't it? Bootstrap example again, copy, paste it, and if you have a custom form or an order form or whatever you serve with Plone, looks like that. The URL is again examples, get bootstrap.com, docs52 examples. What I want to mention at that point is I like the Bootstrap documentation. It's, I think, well written. Good examples, and most of the stuff, I will not say everything works, but most of the stuff you copy and paste into your template just works. If you have this accordion thingy, maybe some Plone security features may block certain attributes or elements. That's something you have to enable in Plone to allow copy stuff like that into TinyMCE, but it works much better than expected. During the training, we also had a little part where we showed code snippets from TinyMCE. So that's also an option. Put a component into a code snippet for TinyMCE, and you can insert it, or you can allow your authors to insert it by clicking buttons in TinyMCE without switching to HTML. So that's also possible. A little bit more space I want to give cards because I love cards. They're very useful for structured content on your site. Actual portlets in Plone 6 Classic UI are done with cards. So this is one example where they are already used. You can always use them to wrap your content, to make blogs, to make listings. I made a, or in one of the themes there will be a content listing just made with cards. It's a good example for having repeating elements. The default example you can find in the Bootstrap docs. What I show here, I guess this is pretty close to the default. I do not remember exactly. I made the next 10 slides for a custom project for a client. He asked, hey, cards, can you make some draws how they may look like in our project? And I sat down like, I guess 2 or 3 hours. See here? No, so I cannot say that. It took like 2 hours to add variants of a card, and that's what I want to show here. That's the default view. If you don't have images, because not always you have images, if you don't have a team that provides stuff like that, sometimes you need to list content without images or graphics or icons. Give it a border. Border top is a utility method of Bootstrap, just add it to the card here and it looks like that. The same for move it to the left. So it's small change, 3 characters in your entire template and it looks like that, a little bit different. Again, the Bootstrap color system is also available with utility classes. So if you add a border, you can give the border a color and the border could use or reuse the defined variables you already have. So here with primary, secondary, and I guess successor, what green is. Little massive border next, just to get a different look and feel of a card. It's still a card. It's like it's exactly the same card. I just added a class on top of the markup. That's the only difference I made to get that layout or that look and feel. An idea or something I want to show is you have listings, sometimes you have images, sometimes not. You need a way of fallback, and that's why or in the most projects we do a technical fallback. If there is a news without an image, you still want to not break the entire layout, so use your site logo, use your company logo, use a random icon from Bootstrap icons, whatever. Just put it into a box on top of the card and it looks like that. So it does not break your listing, for example, if there is one element in between without a specific image. This is a horizontal version, I guess, also an example from the Bootstrap documentation, I cannot remember. It was really simple to change it, or it was an actual example. I cannot remember for all example exactly. Next thing is we also introduced Bootstrap icons in Plone 6. I have no slides for that specific. Everybody, I guess, has heard of it. Icons.bootstrap.org. Tons of icons. They look clean and easy. They are registered in a way you can override it in your custom project, or you can reuse just the SVG. Here I added it to the card as a different version of the image or as a different version of an company logo. This is something you can easily archive in Plone when you have a content type and you give a field where you can put in an icon name or you can put in the actual SVG, and it looks like that. In combination with colors, again. The next example is a lightweight version of the card. I dropped, I guess there is no image there. I dropped this huge button at the bottom. There is a different version of a call to action inside a component or inside the component, which is a card link. Looks like that. So the whole card looks much different with just small changes in the markup. If it's this too-less for your customer and he needs it a bit more nice and shiny, I re-added the icon as background. Just this is really custom now. I added it as a background. I moved it a little right, a little top, and it looks like that. So nice idea for cards. Since it's SVG icon, you can modify the color as well. So also error messages or stuff could look good somehow. You don't need to look them ugly. Last example again is actual Bootstrap examples again. I was not sure if I showed that because you need an image, you need a dark image, you have to put white color on top of it to read it, and this only works when you have all that elements in combination. So if one of it, if there is no title, it looks ugly. If the image is too bright, it will not be readable. So bad example in my case for a content management system, good example for a designer. So it looks good, use it, it's one of the examples. Okay. now the things I had in mind when I come to the conference I want to show you. One of it is Plone Theme Tokyo. When I talk about theming by use case, I have to mention that somehow, because the use case of that theme is, it is, responsive, mobile first, clean, very clean, and somehow nice and shiny. And now you have to think about 2018. So in combination or in addition, or not combination, if you take Barceloneta and you try to get the words I just said in combination with Barceloneta, you know something will not fit. So it was a proof of concept. It was started in 5.2, and somehow that escalated quickly. And I want to encourage you to think about what you need in a theme. So when you do your custom project, you don't have to inherit from Barceloneta. Do it from scratch and just add what you really need. The Plone Theme Tokyo, everything is Bootstrap. We dropped the columns just to say something about the package. There are no portlets. We decided we don't want to stick with portlets in that. We made it fully responsive. First time I made a theme that really worked on a mobile. And it's suitable if you create a website, a microsite, a landing page. Of course, it's not the best choice if you have a huge intranet with tons of users and they need special features of Plone that are hidden, like portlets, for example. It looks like that. I go through the slides a little bit more quickly. There are real-world examples. You can actually hit in your browser plonetheme.tokyo. It's a top-level domain, so try it. Try it on your phone. Break it. What you see here is 5.2, so I want to show the current state. This is how the front page looks like. We modified the login page a little bit. It's just overrides in that package for 5.2, so if you're on a 5.2 project and need to know how you want to change a theme, there are tons of overrides in to fix the back end, basically. I don't want to talk about that much, but now we have Plone 6, and it's much easier in Plone 6. I will show that later. The formula stuff, what you see here, is pretty much what you see in Plone 6. This is with tons of overrides and bug fixes to get that archived. It's an example for forms. So this was a default page with no custom styling. I mentioned that because of the typography we tried to get in from Bootstrap, so that's much cleaner than you know it from the past. The responsive version, so if you not pick the phone, that's what you expect. What you see is, again, Plone 5.2. The screenshots are old, I was sick, no time to update them. But there will be an update for Plone 6. And the migration from, or to Plone 6 for this theme mostly means deleting stuff. We have like 50 overrides in. They're all just, we just delete them, and then we have default Plone, looks like the same. The same for CSS. We delete all the CSS and it looks like the same. And at the end I have a navigation component from Bootstrap. Of course, a little CSS to get that nice and shiny, but buttons, forms, header, all the stuff is like default in Plone 6. Not Plone 6 Barceloneta, but if you do from scratch and if you know what you do and use components, it's pretty fast. Check out the code, wait for updates there. I promise there will be a version for Plone 6. Feedback is welcome, so if you use it in your project, or if you start a project and you stick to Plone 6 Classic UI, let me know if you have ideas for improvements to make it reusable for you, or some settings or stuff, whatever may be needed in that theme, let me know it. Next thing, this is basically what we did for the last conference, for the online training plus talk. Don't remember exactly. So the training created plonetheme.munich. That's the state we have. Again, if you wait 6 weeks, it will look much better. Plone Theme Munich is, again, everything Bootstrap. We decided to have 2 columns in. We moved the portlets to the right end. To have them in somehow, but I don't want to waste space like we do it in Barceloneta. the idea of the theme is to stick as close as default Bootstrap components as possible. So don't do a different styling for my breadcrumbs, don't do a different styling for my navigation, don't do a different styling for a lot of components, like search bar or stuff like that. So I don't like Barceloneta so much, or specific some details of it, so that's the idea of creating a nice and clean version of it. Looks like that. If you, really not big difference, because it's not that much work that you may expect. If you do it side by side, Barceloneta and that theme, you see the little differences, and this is an opinionated version of a theme that should just look a little cleaner, and the current version here, updates are on its way. Listings, default components from Bootstrap again for listings without personal flavor, so I try to reuse the stuff we have there. Same like tabular listing. It is there, and if you don't change it, it looks like that. Forms, as said, this is actual Plone 6, I guess, a very early version, so the screenshot is like a year old. If I redo the screenshot, for example, the buttons at the bottom are fixed now and small changes. Okay, the configuration pane still works. You notice the icons are a little small. That's because I dropped the styling for the configuration stuff, so the only change is the icon should be a little bit bigger. Code is as well on GitHub. Give us feedback, use it. Use it as an example. So I would not recommend it using in a project or inherit from it for your custom project. It's more an example. Download it and see how few changes you have to make in your project, in your theme, to get to a look and feel like that. It's more like a proof of concept or a template. So that's how it's meant to be. Of course, you can use it if you're happy with it and you change the logo and everything is fine. But borrow from the templates, look at the overrides, and a minimalistic approach of what's really necessary. Okay. Shortly, I have to talk about the toolbar. You may missed it, especially in the Tokyo theme. I personally don't like it. It's too difficult, it's too complicated, it's a lot of magic, some JavaScript stuff. I never was happy with the toolbar. How much? Passed? Okay, do I get 1 minute? Yeah, toolbar, don't like it. Use it in Classic if you like. You can import the stuff. I introduced collective sidebar, which is a drop-in replacement for the toolbar. The code is also available. Looks like that. That's one of my lovely favorite projects. The concept is of bringing navigation and editing elements together into one sidebar, which is one template you can style and override. What you see here is Plone 5.2. The version 1.5 of the sidebar is like that, and I recently worked on the update for Plone 6, again, deleting stuff, cleaning up templates, and in Plone 6, reuse components for the sidebar, like this off-canvas thing to slide it in, like the drop-downs to hide or show sections. That's what I like when I work on Plone 6, and it's also suitable on mobile. Check out the project, give me feedback if you want to use it, or if you have feedback what needs to make it possible to use for you. So the whole talk should be, I want to encourage you to create themes from scratch and add to your theme exactly what you need. And use default components for the start. It's pretty much, it's pretty fast. You don't believe me. Add a project, add some components. It looks good after 2 hours of coding. So touch the templates, especially the main template. Forget about the past. They said don't touch the main template. Forget about that. It's registered in your project, beat it up, modify it, have fun with it. It will help you. And the last thing, or the very last thing, is clean up, delete what you don't need. We have this manage portlets view where you can disable what you don't want. and instead of trying overriding and fiddling around, just delete all or remove the stuff you don't need. And for the rest, be lazy and use Bootstrap. Okay. Thanks. Any questions? That was an unfulfilled promise.
Any questions? No? Okay, then. Thank you.
There is one question. Maybe the only one.
Wait.
Wait
for the microphone to have it on record.
Hey, I was just wondering, like, if you use Bootstrap you said that you should try to override like fonts and style change and stuff like that. Isn't that like hard if you have like a lot of sites and you don't really like know what's like changing up if you change one variable at the Bootstrap's file? Do you have any tips for that which could help you, like if you make a change there and it changes something that you don't like? Do you have any tips that could help with that kind of problem?
I would recommend the Bootstrap documentation itself. There is a whole chapter of how to use it. I only scratched at the top of the whole Bootstrap thing. You can use mix-ins, you can inherit, you can combine stuff. There is much more possible than I showed. Just changing 3 variables is just a little part of what you can do with it. If you have 20 different sites and want to streamline them somehow, imports are still possible. We have in the training documentation an example where we import the toolbar part of Barceloneta, which is only a bunch of CSS, and this brings the styling for the original Plone toolbar in my project. So there is an NPM package, I can import stuff. If you do it in your project in a similar way, should not be a big deal. So talk to me maybe after the talk if you have a specific question or something. Yes, okay. I can mention, but documentation is one of the best I have seen.
Okay, so
people are waiting. I guess we have to stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have,
sorry for the rush. They told me I have more time. Fred, you're. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. There was breaking.
I thought the next talk was cancelled.
I didn't rush that math that fast because it's open.
It's not a real problem.
I don't want to break.
Here, it's for you. It's a courtesy of the Ville of Namur.
Yeah. So, cool. Thanks. Just a second, I grab my notebook. And then if he says you have time.